just wanted to show you guys kind of a breakdown of the track Drowning that we did, the remix we did for the man,
Orjan.
the myth, the legend, Orjan Nilsen. So just gonna start with the bass line.
Figured we could just go from here and then break down everything. So let's see. I'll just yeah. So this is where the bass line starts. I'll just play a little bit and then we'll go over some of like the key elements. So this is the bass here. Okay. Let's see. First things first, I think we should go over the kick. Because the kick, usually we just drop a kick in. But I think with this one, we actually compressed it. So
Yeah, just a little bit, kind of.
just because between the kick and the sub, it wasn't really cutting through. And I don't know, usually you probably swap another kick out, but in this instance it works. So yeah, it's a kick, right? It works. So there's that. And then our sub, which is like basically the main element of this bass line. Usually there's like other layers, like a mid bass or saws or whatever, but in this case it's literally just like a sub.
And the sub has like a few octaves, so there's the super low sub you can't really hear, then kind of a more audible low sub, and then a little bit higher sub, and just compressed down at different levels so that it sounds good. Um, Honestly, we don't follow very many rules, so we just make it till it sounds good to us at least until we're happy with it and like it. So
The kick and the sub, that's like the general idea. But it's missing, obviously it's missing grooves. So what we did is we added some hi-hats and like some percussion loops that we just kind of chopped up and edited. So those guys without the bass and the kick. That just gives the rhythm a little bit more groove, makes it a little more dancey, makes it, just move a little bit more. Let's see. Obviously, there's effects. I don't really think we need to go into too much because those are just like white noise and stuff. Let's see, what else do we have on this? Oh, right. So the atmosphere, that's going to be, let me see if I can get to it here. So when we remix this, we got some stems from Orjan. One of the stems that we used in this track, there's a couple of them that we used from the original that we tweaked. This one right here is actually from the original track.
With some side change, some reverb on there.
And so that plays throughout the track. Yeah, like you said, side chained it when appropriate. Put some reverb on it to make it blend a little bit better. But that one, yeah, that's from the original track. We just brought it in. And then, let's see, maybe one other thing. I know we have these accents. I'll just play them real quick. It's really just like a synth that we added.
We kind of pan left and right a little bit just for a variation.
Yep. And then, let's see, last thing I think on the bass line, worth showing you guys here.
We can show you the guitar coming in and then
Oh yeah, yep. Here's another one of those stems that we used from the original track. So this is the guitar that Orjan had.
We ran it through an amp, a little more punch. I changed it in the bass line, and we'll show you how it sounds when we break later on.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the bass line. Aside from that, I think we had some fills that we added. The way that we like to do our fills is we'll usually grab a bunch of different ones or different sounds that we like, and we'll cut them up. And then as we kind of mix and match it to, whatever sounds good for the track. In this case, here's like a few of them. So, oops. Just different like sounds, basses, percussion, snares, reversing, chopping, stretching, just nothing too crazy, but you spend a little time with it, you get some unique sounds. All together, again, like, the guitar, the bass, and everything, that's what gets us that. So that's pretty much the bass line.
Let's see. Do the pads and stuff, or maybe the piano.
Sure, yeah. So let's see. Let's move on to the break then, because that's pretty much. Let's see. So the break here. Let me just double check where it's at here.
Got me locked down while you're up with others. Your other lovers. Nobody got me hooked like you.
So we got vocals in here. I'll go over we'll go over the vocals in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and get this bass pad that he was talking about pulled up. So here's something Rilo did. It's just like a really fat bass pad.
It's like a JX10 pad, kind of. Again, a few octaves. Makes things sound a little bit fatter.
To a wider sound, like with stereo imaging too, because if you get a fat sub underneath, and you don't have like any mids, it's not gonna like cut through, a phone or whatever. Something with like little low end, like a phone speaker or like little cheap headphones, whatever. So, but yeah, let's see. There's that. We did have like pads. They were layered a little bit differently here. Rilo added a few different layers to get some wide pads here. If I remember correctly too, I think you added the organ, right? We added the organ from the original stem. So that was another stem that we added to. There's like these organ pads that Orjan had. We just threw those in with some of the pads that we used. I think some of them for like Serum or Omnisphere. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, we brought that guitar back in on the breakdown. Let's see. So here's the song again.
Nobody got me hooked like you.
We just kind of chopped it. Again, reverb, stretched it. Just so it fits the song better, lets the vocal get in the forefront versus having the guitar in the front. Some effects in here. I'll just play them real quick. Just little things to add character and tension to the track. One was like a really low one. One was just like the sub. White noise. I think that's pretty much it. There's the vocal. I guess that's pretty important. Let's see. You think you did most of the vocal editing?
Yeah,
right?
I did a lot of the vocal stuff. We can play through it real quick.
I feel like I'm 20 feet underwater, grasping after air, but you pull me under. Got me locked down while you're up with others. Your other lovers. No.
So in the vocal here, what we did, added some compression on top of what was already there. Added some delay, reverb, a few different things just to kind of EQ and such. But something that's really unique about this track is what we did is kind of automate the reverb a little bit so that it swells on different phrases. So if you notice,
Your other lovers. Nobody got me hooked like you. Tears in my heart, tears in my moves. There you go and leave me sorrow. Tears in my heart, tears in my
So just kind of like to keep things a little bit interesting, create kind of swells, and just basically give the listener something to look forward to and create tension. So the piano as well, we did.
Oh yeah, we had this.
It's kind of a random idea that just came out. I mean, while production, producing the track. So
I think it's this one here. Yeah. Nothing super crazy. It's just the chords, the piano chords, and then the ARP had, I think it was Valhalla Shimmer, right?
Valhalla Shimmer.
We use a lot of shimmer on our tracks, so I'm pretty sure, yeah. So basically, we just gave the ARP piano here just a little reverb. Gives it a little brightness with that reverb. Shimmer's a really, really good reverb. We use that a lot. I think that's pretty much it on the break. There's nothing crazy. There's some percussion and stuff, but it's pretty much like the same idea as what we did in the bass line. It's just not sidechained. There's some claps that we used on the build. That's probably, I think.
I mean, we can show you guys. So in making this track, we went through a few different versions of this remix. Quite a few actually. But we kind of settled on this one. But this is the version before.
Is that screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it over there. Let's see. Make sure the audio's all good on this side. Okay. So Majora's DAW of choice is obviously Ableton. Mine is Logic.
We usually send stems back and forth, which is cool. I mean, it helps us kind of commit to like an idea instead of like reworking the idea over and over, which, you don't want to get too caught up in that sometimes because then you're losing the momentum of actually finishing your tracks. And I think that's one thing that really helps us, even though we have separate DAWs and we can't send like the whole project with all the effects, is having, just the idea on there. And if we need to rework something, we'll send each other MIDI or the synth patches. But.
Exactly. So on this one, what we did was initially we had a bass drop instead of a chord drop. Well, there were going to be two drops. There was going to be a bass drop and then
the chord drop afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is what that sounds like. Just as kind of a little treat for you guys, a little VIP look into what we do. And then the second break we had kind of played with a few different ideas, kind of like some drums. We never really fleshed it out much.
There's been a few tracks where we've gone through like a few ideas and we'll wind up scrapping them just because we don't think it's going to fit what we're ultimately shooting for, like the main idea that we have focused on. We had the chord drop, for this track. We did this bass drop and it just wasn't cutting for us. We had this groove and it wasn't quite there, so we wound up scrapping those things and we just kept it with you guys here on the actual release, which is just the bass with the break and a chord drop. But it turned out really good, so
these are the saws, what they turned out to be. This is the main super saw with all the MIDI. You guys can hear those kind of artifacts in there. So what we ended up doing was, in order to keep the effect, but not that kind of weird delay on the end. We just ended up chopping it, so it became like this.
Bounce it to audio.
Yeah, bounce it to audio, and then ended up being. And then on top of that, something that's kind of really near and dear to our hearts is vocal chops, as many of you probably know. So what we did was kind of simple processing, a little OTT, some delay, reverb, and then obviously a little sidechain to get it to fit into the groove. So they sound like this on their own. And then something that's kind of overlooked in the track, as in you don't really hear it, but it's if you took it out, it wouldn't sound right. Are these little delayed vocal chops? Just kind of add a little bit of texture.
They're the same vocals from the bass line that are playing in the background, like the same vocal chops. We just threw them back in there to give them a little more flair, like on the chord drop. Kind of helps give it a little more energy.
Exactly. So also, this is how the drop sounded before. We did kind of we tried to play with the kind of idea of a rolling bass underneath it. That's the melody from the bass line as well. So I mean that's pretty much the old project. A little MIDI for you, see kind of how it went.
It's worth showing because like I said, we go through a ton of different ideas. Sometimes they don't make it, but if it wasn't for like starting that with the rolling bass and everything, we wouldn't have gotten to what the final track, sounded like, which is, we kept the saws, we had the lead, we just changed the low end, which is, I think, this one, and then I think if you hit, so here's like the mid bass. We replaced that rolling bass that had like the saw and everything on the chord drop with this one here. And that's just like a saw bass. I think there's another layer that's like a mid bass. We keep our subs separate, but it's the same notes, same rhythm. And then obviously they have their processing and everything. But still the same thing. We kept the super saws. I think we might have processed a little bit more, a little different here and there, but ultimately they're the same thing. Same atmosphere from earlier, just kind of bringing in some more elements to fill in space for that like wide wall of sound, like this, good stereo image. Yeah.
Sitting well in the mix.
Let's see. I think that's white noise in here. Crash cymbals, yep. So we use the crash cymbals as white noise for a little more energy. You can see we used effects again. Here's that lead we were talking about that we showed in the last project that we brought over. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much the chord drop. Kick's still there. Had our drum fills, we moved them over and added some new ones to it. Halfway through it, we added some of the things that we had in the beginning, like the snare, just to give it a little bit more momentum halfway through, so it isn't as boring. Like the second time around, that way it keeps it interesting. Just little things, The vocal stutters stayed. And then, of course, we bring the vocal back to the last half of it. But yeah, I mean that's
pretty much it.
Pretty much how Drowning came together. I thought it'd be cool to show you guys, So we went ahead and we consolidated everything into stems, because usually our projects get so big between us bouncing things back and forth that we just have to start, consolidating certain things into stems. And but I mean, ultimately, like you said, everything has its place in the mix. Certain things like crashes and everything just add energy. There's not really a secret. I think most of it comes down to having a good idea. And Orjan made a really great track to begin with. So we took some of those elements, brought them over, and just put our spin on it. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave some comments. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you guys there in the comments. Thanks for watching.